All right, Randy, can you see my screen? Perfect. So for those of you who are familiar with SICK, you may be familiar with SOPAS. For those who are not, SOPAS is a configuration and diagnostic tool put together by SICK Incorporated. And today we're just going to kind of go through some of the basic features of the SOPAS tool. I'd like to show you some neat features, some ways that you can pre-configure and commission your devices, as well as troubleshoot some of your devices. So when you first start up SOPAS, you'll get a screen that looks like this. This is a home screen. It tells you the current version of SOPAS. It lets you start a new project. It has a couple of links to the manuals on how to use SOPAS, or just to sick.com, maybe to look up some partners. It also allows you to open some recent projects. So I already have a project going. If I switch to my project tab, and what you see here is kind of a general display. It's a very user-centered interface, so it's very graphical. There's multiple ways to select different devices. You'll see I have my, what we call a project window. This is where the devices that I need to look at are displayed, and allows me to see some information about them, whether they're, how they're connected, their IP address, their serial number, maybe their firmware version. On the right, we kind of have our navigation inside of SOPAS. So we kind of have three different ways of connecting to devices. The first is going to be a device search. I have several devices here physically connected to PC. There are multiple ways to connect to these devices. We can connect via IO-Link, as you can see here on this guy, the C4P, which is a T-Tech4 light curtain. We can connect over Ethernet, which we have multiple devices here. This Lector 632, the MLG, and the RFU 630s are all connected via Ethernet. And then the last one, which I don't have anything connected up to right now, is over USB. So multiple ways to connect to the plethora of devices. The great thing about SOPAS is, if you're not familiar with these part numbers, the picture to tell you here what they are, and it is just a great representation of the value of SOPAS in itself, is that it is one software platform from SICK to configure pretty much all of, I would say probably 85 to 90% of all of their field devices. So we range from light curtains, which is the MLG, the Lector, which is a camera-based barcode system, the RFU, which is an RFID interrogator. We have 2D LiDAR with the TIM series, the distance sensors, for example, the GT35. And if we scroll down, you can see I have a plethora of other types of devices, including coders, IO-Link blocks, registration sensors, some of the process sensors like temperature and pressure, even all the way down to the basic photoelectrics. And as we keep scrolling, here's some of the vision platforms. So the great thing about SOPAS, again, is it's one device, one look and feel. Just to show you, kind of iterate how important that is, one of SICK's biggest competitors has over 25 different software platforms. Some of them are free, some of them you have to pay for. They're all unique to their sensor lines, and they all make potentially different. So you have to learn how to use every time you need to connect to new sensor. Here with SOPAS, it's one look and feel. The double click does the same thing inside of the software for a light curtain as it does for an RFID reader. So it makes it very quick and easy to learn and get familiar with. So as I said, the device search is how we bring in some of the devices. We also have a device log. It's very useful for when you're maybe doing a little pre-planning of what you're into your system, or maybe you want to create some configurations before you actually have the physical device, or do it in the comfort of your desk where it's nice and warm, instead of going out into the plant floor where it might be loud or noisy or dirty. You can actually pull up some of these devices here through the device catalog if you search for them. In this case, I'm just searching for an inspector, which is a 2D camera, and it brings up every version of the inspector that SICK offers. This is great because it allows us to actually open this, see what all we can change, maybe create a list for a maintenance guy to go out and check and make sure everything's configured properly. And then finally, we have emulators. These emulators are very handy, and SICK has created them for the majority of their vision platforms. These emulators basically do as they say. They emulate what a physical piece of hardware does. And I'll show you these guys here in a few minutes. So just to show how powerful SOPAS is, you should be able to see my entire screen. So I have 2, 4, 6, 9 windows open at one time. This is one instance of SOPAS. I have several devices, I have the terminal, I have an emulator running all at the same time, all through one instance of SOPAS. So I don't have to run multiple different programs. I can, Okay, so I believe where we left off, we had already discussed that SOPAS is a free software package from SICK. It can be downloaded at sick.com. It is a very useful tool for configuring, commissioning, and troubleshooting a plethora of these SICK devices. I think we've probably gotten to the point where we briefly talked about the emulator, which allows you to do a little pre-configuration on some of the vision devices that SICK offers. We had touched on the device catalog here, which is a great way to view the available parameters for configuration of devices that SICK makes without actually having a device. And then we had discussed through the device search, it allows you to search on your local network via IO link, Ethernet, or USB to connect to physical devices. And as you can see here in my project window, I definitely have quite a few less devices. These are only the devices physically connected to my PC. And to get to them, what I have is I have my safety light curtain connected over Ethernet, and I have my 3 other devices here, the Lector barcode scanner, the MLG2 light curtain, and the RFU630 RFID reader, all connected to an unmanaged switch, which allows me to connect to all of these devices just using a single Ethernet port. So what I would like to do now is actually show you kind of the similar look and feel of SOPAS across all of these devices. So as you see here, I have all these windows open on a single instance of SOPAS. It's very powerful because I can connect to multiple devices at the same time. For example, if I make a change to my MLG2 based on looking at box sizes, I can then look at potentially my RFID reader or my barcode scanner to fine tune them in a very symbiotic fashion, make a little tweak on one device, make sure the other device is not negatively affected. So it's very powerful to have multiple devices open at the same time that I can configure at the same time. So the first thing we'll kind of look at here, Blue Sandeep already went through this. Again, this is a MLG2 light curtain. As you can see, if I move my hand through it, I'm getting real-time status of what these beams are. On one side, you have some of your specific configuration navigation. So we kind of call this like a navigation tree. In the middle, you have your focus window. This is either your live display of the device, or this may be the specific parameters you wish to change. And then typically on the left, you have either a navigation tree or some form of wizard, commissioning wizard or teaching wizard, or just a wizard to help you kind of step through the processes of getting one of these devices up and running. So in this window, again, very similar look and feel. This is the Lector 632 barcode scanner. So if I put it into live operation mode, you can actually see as I wave my hand or my arm in front of it, I can put different devices with barcodes on them, and it will find their barcodes. And again, very similar look and feel. Here on the left, we have a wizard that allows us to do a step-by-step process of how to fine-tune the different types of barcodes that this scanner might read. Here on the right, we have our navigation tree to allow us to control some of the camera and illumination settings. We can do the settings for the different types of codes, whether they're 1D or 2D codes. And we can even do, we can change some of the different outputs. We can change the way it's triggered. We can do some basic analysis. We can change how the beeper works or the indication light works. Again, everything inside of SOPAS to allow us to configure the device the way we want it. And then if we look here, the next screen, it looks slightly different, but it still has a very similar look to the other two. This is the RFU 630. It's an RFID interrogator from SICK. Has up to 3 external antennas. As you can see, it's currently seeing a pair of RFID tags that I have placed in front of it. Again, has a navigation window on one side, a wizard to set up different tags as well in a different pane. Here I can come in through a file structure and actually look at my antennas configured. For example, I can see power to each antenna. I can change whether I'm using external antennas or not. I can change how the device is triggered, whether I want it in free mode, which is just running, do a pulsed cycle, or if I want it to be triggered off photo eye, I can change that in these menus, which is great. I can also do some data processing, so I can control how my outputs are on or off. I can actually set up my Ethernet output format in a very intuitive click type of way of adding to build an Ethernet string for my output. As you can see, where I just have my standard header, the tag, as it were, and then the footer at the end of my Ethernet string. So it's a very simple Ethernet output. Keep this in mind here in a couple seconds. And then finally, we can see the for light curtain, which is the newest stick. This is simply mostly a diagnostic. It allows you to see the current status. You can see it's actually unhappy. That's because it's not facing itself and it doesn't have its muting sensor. It gives me instantaneous status of light curtains. So over IO-Link, we are now able to kind of communicate some non-safety data back our SOPAS configuration, which helps us with commissioning and troubleshooting. And finally, the last thing I want to show you, so we've talked a lot about commissioning and configurations. Our SOPAS does have a couple of tools built within it to help you with diagnosing things or validating your configuration. So in the drop-down menus of SOPAS, we have a couple of items here, one being the terminal and one being a data recorder. The data recorder is great because it will actually record the data that you tell it to record on a set interval or on a specific IP address. So it's really good to actually say, when you have the operator come to you and say, hey, we're having trouble on this line, the MLG2 keeps fritzing out at a certain interval. You can come in and say, okay, this happens on third shift on a Friday, and you can actually have SOPAS running, say an industrial PC, and it will actually record every Friday during third shift, and you can come back offline and look at that data and see, am I really getting an issue, or is it potentially a operator error, or is it a issue happening upstream or downstream of the device? But the one thing I really want to show you, because it's a very, very handy tool, is what we call the terminal. The terminal is basically just a Ethernet sniffing device. So what it does is it looks at a specific IP address, it looks for Ethernet strings coming across the line, and it basically just shows you what each of these strings are. You can see it just kind of did an update because I have this RFID reader that I'm looking at update every 5 seconds or so. It has a bunch of different lines of data. It will show you the actual data in ASCII or hex format. It'll tell you how long that string is. It'll tell you if it was a string that was going out from the device or into the device. So you can actually do some two-way sniffing here, diagnostics. We can see if I remove the tags from the RFID reader, you can see I now have a very short string, and it just says no read. So this is good to know. I don't have anything coming across, not a big deal. But then if I put my tags back in front of it, it'll update. You'll see these strings get a little bit longer, a little more data in them. So if I click on this string here, I can kind of make sense of this gobbledygook because I know that my tag data ends in 7264-2020. This just happens to be one of my tags, and we can confirm that by going back to our RFID reader, looking at the quick start, and we can see 7264-2020 is one of the tags that I should be seeing. So it's great to actually be able to verify that you've built your Ethernet string correctly and that the device is reading the components or the RFID tags that you want to read. And it's a great device. You can look at anything that's Ethernet based. So anything that's currently connected to SOPAS, you can kind of connect to it and do any form of diagnostic or verification that you'd like. And so what I think that probably concludes the short little brief of SOPAS. Back to Randy.